Rita Carl, Director of Educational Programs at Challenger Center for Space Science Education. And our guest today is Richard Garriott, who is the son of Owen Garriott, the astronaut who flew on the Skylab in the 1970s. And Richard is a preeminent game developer who is training right now to fly on the International Space Station in October.
Thank you, Rita. As she said, this is Richard Garriott coming to you from what for most of you is probably the other side of the world, over here in Moscow, where if most of you are in the United States, I'm about 7 to 10 hours ahead of you, depending on what time zone you're in. And I'm really enjoying my training out here. I've been out here almost full-time since January, so I'm about 20 or 30% of the way through the training process so far. But I thought it might be good to start with just a little bit about who I am and what I'm doing here and what brought me here. So Rita, if you'll go ahead and step us forward to the second PowerPoint slide, and I'll give everybody just a little background on what I'm doing here. First of all, as Rita mentioned, I'm very fortunate to have been very closely involved with the space program since I was quite young. My dad actually became a NASA astronaut when I was about 5 years old. And so I grew up right there next to the Johnson Space Center in Houston, and not only was my father an astronaut, but so were both my left and right hand next door neighbors. I also, fortuitously for my involvement with the Challenger Center, happened to have been the student of Challenger Center founder June Scobie. And so therefore I have kind of a historical connection with the Challenger Center that goes back all the way to its inception. And if you think about traveling to space, right now that is something that is somewhat difficult to do even as a private citizen, or especially as a private citizen. It's not a cheap activity, you might say. Unfortunately, I've had a very successful career in the computer game field, which is what has allowed me to take on this particular journey. And in October, when I fly, I will become the first second-generation American astronaut. And I'll be following up into space Sergei Volkov, who is the first second-generation Russian, and the two of us will return together. So if I think about, if I want to describe briefly my plans for what I want to do on orbit, you know, I am a big believer that having an opportunity like this is not to be wasted. And while I'm sure I will very much enjoy just going to space and frankly looking out the window to see the Earth from that vantage point and feel the microgravity of space for such an extended period of time, I want to make sure that I'm making as productive use of that time as possible, both because I think it's wasteful, you might say, not to, but also because I think it will add a great deal of enjoyment and fulfillment to me personally. And so I plan 3 or 4 major kinds of activities, the first one being scientific research. I'm actually doing an experiment called protein crystal growth that I'll talk about in a little more detail. I'm doing something called crew Earth observations, where you take pictures of the Earth from space, which is something that has a history that goes back to my dad's time on Skylab. I'm going to be doing educational outreaches like this. This is this is the first live teleconference that I'm doing here with Challenger Center. We have many more planned. In fact, we hope to make a live connection from space. I also, my father started took the first ham radio into space, and I plan to follow that up, that I'll talk about here in a little more detail. And finally, as an inspiration from my mother, who's a professional artist and was really inspirational to me, I plan to do art in space, both showing art that was brought from the Earth, as well as trying to create some interesting art while I'm in space to bring back to the Earth. The next slide, I talk a little bit about the Challenger Center, something you all probably know quite well about, but I'm actually going to do a variety of experiments to try to demonstrate how the environment of space differs from the environment here on Earth. And a lot of the experiments that I'll be performing were inspired by experiments that go all the way back again to my father's time on Skylab, whether that's showing how fluids act in space, showing how magnets or gyroscopes act in space, and I'm hoping that we can simultaneously perform these experiments in classrooms here on the Earth at the same time that I demonstrate them in space, or at least I'll record them how they operate in space, and then we can contrast together the environments here on the ground and the environment that I'll be in space for those 10 days. Plus, of course, as you're familiar with being on this line, we'll be doing things like these broadcasts and some webcasts, and hopefully not only pre and post flight, but also get a chance to do it live from space as well.